Hello, everybody, and welcome. This is Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans. This is the Level 1 presentation for May 31st, 2018, and I'm almost at the end of the 2018 first half of the year semester or teaching cycle. So I'll do one more presentation wrapping up things next week, then have a little bit of a break, maybe a week, and then begin everything again. So just for anyone, if this is the first video that you're tuning in, or if you're one of the students who have just signed up on Teachable, first of all, welcome and welcome to the class. And you're actually jumping on a very good point, because first of all, you never have to re-enroll. Like once you're in the class, you're welcome to participate in any of the semesters that are going on. And I'm just about to start everything over again from the beginning. So it's not like any of the things that you're listening to right now are going to spoil anything. This will just be more foundation information so that you can start from a good starting point. And it's all one room schoolhouse. Okay, so as I was kind of saying in the little in-between time between my intro and actually getting things going here. One of the students used to be like, the dreaded lesson 18 of level 1, because I always used to be like, oh, like, we'll wait for that. It's kind of like when you have the talk with your mom and dad, like, oh, we'll save that for the talk. It's like, okay, like it's finally time for the talk. Well, guess what? We've been talking about this already this semester. The cat is out of the bag. This is not a secret at all. It's not a secret. And many, many people speak about this from many different directions or many different flavors of understanding, maybe is the best way I can say it, about what is going on. So this is meant to be empowering information about how we can rectify the situation that we find ourselves in. Now let me turn off this thing over here. That is distracting. So lesson 18 of level 1 actually has 4 parts to it. And I've already spoken a lot about this in Galactic History presentation of this semester. So part of it is the origins of technology and the origins of non-terrestrial artificial intelligence and how that has harmed humanity, basically the rape of our planet. What I didn't speak about enough, I feel, was the segment that I call the economy of hell. So that's what this is about. A happy, fun little topic called the economy of hell. All right, everyone, get ready for story time. And no, it's not actually a very fun, happy topic at all. But I do like to be lighthearted, and I think that that's a big part of our bid for freedom here, is not to be intimidated or brought down too much, emotionally perturbed too much by this, because it's like you can really tear your hair out over it. So please don't go into a downward, depressed emotional spiral about this, because I'll also tell you there are solutions as to what we can do. But the economy of hell is basically the way that energy is siphoned off of the living, the way that it is eaten off of beings like you and I. I had a lovely breakfast this morning. I ate, eggs and tomatoes and juice. And all of that energy is life force energy that's in me. And it's supposed to be fueling my body and my trajectory through time and let me put down my little things, my genetic dance, right? However, there are those pesky occupiers of the interstices. So for people who have been in this class a lot, you know exactly who and what I'm talking about. For anyone who's new, just very briefly, this is a little snippet, like a little detail of a much, much larger system of consciousness that is the time field. It's a living entity that has anatomy, just like we have anatomy, just like we have blood that flows through our body to keep us healthy. This being has time that flows through its body to keep it healthy. And I always draw this lower quadrant down here, this little vortex shape down here, as the shape of one life. And I always tell everyone that this curved area over here, this curved membrane, is the membrane of death. It's a flowing membrane, and it's a barrier between worlds. It's a barrier between this area where I have my silver pencil, and if I tilt this upward, now you can see, bring it closer to this, there we go. You can see it's kind of like a bullseye. Where I put my silver pen right here, that is where living consciousness is. That's where we circulate. You and me, we're alive. We're in this area of the time field. You know where we're not? We're not over here in this little football shape of the time field. And the barrier between those two places, this little ski jump shaped area, this little membrane, that is meant to be a area where energy flows through and there's no blockages. Like that's one of the big takeaways of this. It's not supposed to be a place where beings are camped out or where consciousness is living. That is the whole point. You're supposed to live here, and then if you hit that membrane, you're supposed to freeze. Like a bug splashing on your windshield. It's supposed to freeze. It's not supposed to continue to move through time. So let me do a little, get my magical, this thing is literally called magical. Let me go to the magical whiteboard, and now I'll draw this out in cross section. Good, just make sure everyone that you can see this. Just someone tell me in the chat, like with a thumbs up, that you can actually see what I'm drawing. I always have technological uncertainty. I'm like, can people actually see what I'm actually doing here? So what I just drew is a little cross section, and I drew it in simplified form because we all understand, good, thank you so much, Nicole. We all understand that these timelines actually wrap around like a spiral, going from the general to the specific. But I draw them in simplified form, starting from this big giant blue dot down here and then moving upwards in the direction of that arrow. And I also always draw this central core timeline as an infinity timeline. And infinity is actually a really good thing. This is not imprisonment. I know we're talking about, we are on this planet right now where I would say we are limited or constrained or, caged or imprisoned. That's why everyone want to tell them like, oh yes, and you can circulate endlessly. They're like, no, we don't want to circulate endlessly. We want to be free. This is what I'm trying to tell you, like, guys, this is being free. Oh, sorry, I'm moving everything around. Being free means that you get to travel as consciousness infinitely, and you get to choose your trajectory. This is a huge difference as opposed to what's been happening up until this point, where you have to explore every single one of these erroneous timelines. These are like all of the wrong notes. Here, let me mash the keyboard. That's ugly music. That's all of these timelines that terminate on the membrane of death. And here where I make this little blob, those little, here, let me change a different color. Hold on a minute. Where I'm making these red lollipops. Those are your final denouements. And this is recap for anyone who's been on the journey for the past several months that we've been talking about. Those are your final moments. So let's say you are good. You died because on this timeline, you climbed a mountain, you got to the top of the mountain and the rocks were slipping and sliding and you fell off and you died. Death by mountain climbing. And this place where I'm pointing to with this big, red mark over there, that's the last moment where you splatted on the rocks down below. And that moment contains the trajectory that took you to that final denouement. It's like the movie of your life. That last moment contains all of the possibilities of what brought you to actually hit the membrane of death. Yeah, and when you hit the membrane of death, you're not supposed to keep on being conscious or aware. It means that you have played the wrong notes, and that version of you is not eternal. Now, if I go to just a different color, just to highlight this, here's a beautiful, this bright green line that I'm making here, that is your eternal self. That is the self that contains the characteristics, choices and decisions and behaviors and emanations that lead to eternal life or eternal consciousness or an eternal unbroken journey through the time field. And all of these other possibilities here that I'm swirling my cursor over, those are all the not real versions of you. Those are all either distorted characteristics, like a distorted persona, versions of you that aren't the real you, or where you made choices that led you to experience this experience of death. And death is an aberration. Here, I'll go back to my face. Death is an aberration. I say this all the time. A thing that is not supposed to exist in the time before death, in the time of Atlantis, the antediluvian, sophisticated worldwide culture on this planet before the human genome was corrupted by invaders. Nobody died. What that means, it doesn't mean the membrane didn't exist. That membrane existed, but nobody actually went there. That's like, it's like an empty movie theater. It's like an empty street. Nobody is there. Nothing is happening there. And that's what's actually supposed to be in the perfect music. Let's play some perfect music. In the perfect music of the cosmos, nobody, pardon my French, fucking dies. Death is not what is supposed to happen. And that's a huge difference from what is taught in this time and place. And we'll get into the death cult. The death cult in this world. After the genetic invasion, I spoke about that in galactic history, the invention of death means that not everybody goes at that central core timeline. Now everybody has to explore being askew. Like you're at this angle, you're at this angle, you're at this angle, and you spend 10 million attempts, more than 10 million, just to try to get to this angle. Very similar to Groundhog's Day with Bill Murray, constantly recirculating within one life until you finally reach the inevitability, ascension. Ascension is getting out through that wormhole. Ascension is personal metamorphosis and transformation, moving beyond the necessity of death. But there's all of these programs, when I say mental programs, not a transhumanist, but there are thought structures that are programmed into humanity from a very, very early age that everybody adopts here, which is essentially embracing the necessity of death. And I call this the death cults. And these were incepted, they go all the way back to ancient Sumeria, pretty much the beginning of what is known as recorded human history here on Earth. And recorded human history is everything that everyone can remember after the fall of consciousness, not before the fall of consciousness. Human history does not include the antediluvian sophisticated realm, the time of the immortals. No, humans don't want to talk about that time. They only will understand, recognize, and acknowledge everything that happened since death was invented. Let me just drink some water too. And what happened since death was invented was death became kind of a religion. Religions of animal and human and child sacrifice. Sacrifice, this is what this is. And I'm going to go on a rant about Christianity, and any of the things that I say here are not meant to to harm other people, hurt other people's feelings, or reject you or send you away or anything like that. I'm telling you truth from my perspective. And same thing about the things that I say about sexuality. I'm not trying to harm humans by telling you the things that I'm just telling you about what I see when I see energy. So yeah, religions of sacrifice. And I'm saying this because, no offense to anyone, but this is just the basic truth. Judaism was a religion of animal sacrifice, and that was considered a step up. That Judaism began about 5,700 years ago, over 5,000 years ago. And when it is described, so in the original books of the Bible, the 5 books of Moses, the Torah gives explicit instructions as to how to kill animals in order to please the God known as Jehovah. And to me, that is not true God, because true God does not have to eat animals or plants or anything in order to stay alive. So even this word sacrifice is a distortion and a harmful program. The word sacrifice means that you're making something sacred by killing it. And that is not what I am trying to get everyone to understand. P.S. Look, I'm wearing a cross. Oh my goodness, am I a hypocrite? No, I'm not a hypocrite at all. I'm connecting with true Christ consciousness. I'm pointing out my window. True Christ consciousness is connected to the stars. It's also connected to the earth. It's connected to organisms all over. It's not just one person who, the myth says was killed or crucified here on this planet. So the whole idea is religion was started as a long con, a long time ago, in order to program humanity to embrace death. Not only as a necessity, not only as something like, we have to cut down the wheat or the corn so that we can eat the corn, or we have to, cut off the animal's head so we can eat the animal so we can stay alive, but also the idea of rewarding non-necessary death. This is what animal sacrifice is. It is like saying we're going to take a dove or an ox or something like that could have lived for 5 or 10 or 20 years. And instead of letting it live for 5 or 10 or 20 years, we're going to chop off its head, but we're not going to eat it. We're not actually going to use it for food to keep our bodies and our genetic code running and dancing and metabolizing through time. What we're going to do is burn it on an altar and give it to quote unquote God. That's not actually really God. That is actually an occupier of the interstice that requires a constant influx of life force energy in order to maintain its mental state, instead of going into a state of pure entropy, which is loss of energy. Those beings that live on the interstices are supposed to be entropic. Entropy means loss of energy. We are energetic beings. I'm an energetic being. I'm talking all to energetic beings. We use life force energy. It's what makes your heart beat. It's what makes your neurology run like this. We're in physical bodies. If you're in a physical body, you use energy as your source of energy. And these beings a long time ago, as I spoke about extensively in galactic history, they initially chose to create a system where they would use entropy, or loss of energy, as their fuel through time. And you could imagine that as being like, let's draw a picture of it, as being on a very tall mountaintop or skyscraper. Hold on a minute while I do the whiteboard. Imagine here's a that can get a good color. Here's a very, very tall skyscraper or tall mountaintop. And here is where the little being of pure entropy begins. They're like a little stick figure with arms and legs. And what they do in terms of entropy is they jump off the skyscraper and they're going down, 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 down. They're losing energy. And entropy is what happens when they splat on the bottom. They are supposed to go to a state of totally cold, frozen, deadness, non-being, and non-movement through time. And if I'm using red as the color of entropy here in this drawing today, where I'm highlighting in red on that membrane of death, that is supposed to be an area of coldness, frozenness, unmovingness, non-being, as opposed to, well, let's use the right colors. This was green. This area that I'm highlighting in green over here, this is the area of being, beingness. Having energy, having intelligence, having awareness, being in existence. So what we have here is a balance between existence and non-existence. There are actually some personality characteristics and entities that are supposed to be in a state of non-existence. And those are these guys over here, going back to the right color here. These guys over here are supposed to be in a state of non-existence. They're like, we know we're supposed to be in a state of non-existence, so we are jumping off out of existence and we're jumping down into entropy. But the only problem is their journey into entropy has taken literally I want to say literally freaking forever. Millions and billions of years. They are taking so long, I'll go back to my face, so long to fall downward off of that tower. It's like, imagine if you jumped off a skyscraper, you're like falling backwards, falling backwards, falling backwards, falling backwards. And then it's like, okay, it's been a couple of hours. I'm getting kind of hungry. I'm going to like scramble some eggs, make a little campfire, eat the eggs. Then I'm like, still falling backwards, still falling backwards. They've literally been falling into entropy for millions and billions of years. Those are the beings that are part of the malevolent, non-terrestrial artificial intelligence system that siphons energy off the living. And I spoke about that in galactic history. At a certain point, they flip-flopped and they're like, wait a minute. They're like, they've scrambled their eggs. They're still falling backwards, falling backwards, falling backwards. They're like, wait a minute. I don't actually want to fall backwards anymore. I don't actually want to splat. What I want to do is just hover here. That is the whole point. That's an aberration. They're not supposed to be doing that. They are supposed to go into entropy this fast. And they're not supposed to suddenly reverse and be like, oh, wait a minute, I changed my mind. Now I want to get some energy. This is exactly what has happened. These are why these beings are demonic. This is why they are harmful to the living. Because what they did at a certain point was they changed their mind and they decided, oh, wait, I think I'm actually hungry for energy and I'm going to get my energy from you, the living. And that's you and me. And that's not cool. That's not cool at all. I'm Aurora, a galactic abstraction in a human form, and I have experienced them trying to feed off of me. And of course, there's the death of the original occupant of this body, which was also totally not cool. It was a murder. So murder and sacrifice. These are two examples of the same thing. It is basically taking someone whose mental trajectory was going nice up and down in a good way, and instead turning them to the side and making them hit the membrane of death. And hitting the membrane of death kind of reminds me of that old children's game Operation, where you have to use little pincers and kind of like try to reach inside and get a little tiny thing out from inside. And if you do the wrong thing, then there's a buzzer that sounds buzzer. And you're like, no, because you hit the side, you hit the little edge, and then like, you lose your turn, try again. That's what happens when you are askew and your timeline or trajectory hits that membrane of death. It's like, buzz, try again. And what happens is you then have to unmake. You have to then rewind the videotape, unmake everything you've done for the past 25 or 35 or 17 years, and then go back to the beginning and start again. And then you try a slightly different iteration meaning combination of variables. Be like, maybe this will be the key that will let me out of here. And then, you get subverted and go to the side again. But here's the whole point. There are actually 2 points here. You're not supposed to have to try every single wrong note before you hit the right note. And dark magic exists. What is dark magic? Yeah, Gala is saying, but you forget everything when you die. You consciously, with your daily waking consciousness, with your intellect, forget everything when you die. However, on a genetic level, you don't forget everything when you die. And each one of us, I'm sure everyone has had at least one example of getting information from a peripheral timeline self. So here's one example. a friend of mine that I knew back in Woodstock, back in her wild days, was hitchhiking around, and she was at a truck stop, and there was one particular guy who was like, oh yeah, I'll take you to your destination. Just, come, meet me out back, blah, blah, blah. And so my friend, went into the bathroom to eat whatever. She's washing her hands, and she had a very, very clear vision of herself dead in a dumpster because of that guy. And she wouldn't even go back to the truck stop. She climbed out the bathroom window and, ran away. She didn't want to have to deal with him or whatever. That is a very clear example of her parallel timeline self that made different decisions speaking to her. And we are like musicians, and the music that we send out, other people can hear, and different versions of ourselves can hear. So we can hear ourselves from a different timeline saying essentially, don't be like me, I'm dead in a dumpster. Make a different choice, make a different and better choice. And so that intellectually, yeah, Pedro is saying is intuition remembering a past timeline. I would say yes, no. When you say intuition, what we're talking about is multi-dimensional perception. The best, cleanest term I can use for it. That's what this is. Open up your aperture up here. I'm not making Illuminati hands. I'm trying to understand, and they have to hijack that too. This is like an eye. It's an aperture. It opens up, and then you can see time. That's all of our birthrights. We're supposed to be able to see and perceive time, to be able to see all of these different roads of time that exist here, and what happens if we travel those roads of time and then make good choices, like here's my steering wheel, and be like, I don't want to go down the dumpster route. Let's drive over here instead. Let's drive on the road that is for continued life. So sometimes people have an intuition. Wait, here's my tummy. Here's my guts. That's when you feel it in your guts. You're like, I don't know why, but I just felt in my intuition, don't get in that car. And people have had those feelings too. Don't get on that airplane. Don't get in that car. Don't, do whatever you're going to do. And then often there is confirmation. Oh, and then that flight crashed or whatever. Hello, Eric. Lovely to see you. And Eric says quantum level. That's exactly right. When we're talking about quantum level perception, it is the perception of the possibilities and probabilities in the time field. And that's what we are supposed to be able to experience. We were not originally intended, just like we weren't intended to die, we were not intended to fly through time blind. To be able to have to be constantly bumping into the membrane of death and be like, oops, try again, oops, try again. All of that is happening because of satanic technology. So satanic technology or dark magic has done two things: blinded humanity in our flight through time. And also, let's say this is me, I'm driving my car through the road, on the road of time, and I'm like, these are my hands on the steering wheel. I'm supposed to be able to choose where I'm going and which road I'm going on. But sometimes satanic technology, dark magic, violently grabs the wheel and jerks you off the side of the road. And that is totally uncool. And when I'm talking about that, that is the economy of hell. So wait, let me just drink a little bit more water, because these membranes that I'm talking about, the membrane of death, it's hell. All right, let's just be honest about this. The economy of hell is how those beings, who are supposed to be beings of pure entropy, falling backwards off a giant tower, started to organize their realm when they decided to stop falling backwards and actually try to just hover or tread water or stay in place. They're trying to live on this membrane of death when no one is supposed to live there. You're not supposed to live there. You're supposed to be dead there, dead, frozen. You're not supposed to have movement. So to use a molecular analogy, in my room right now, there's air molecules. The air molecules are all moving around, going hither, thither, and yon. And my room feels warm. Look at me. I'm wearing a t-shirt. I'm not bundled up in a parka. My room is warm and comfortable. If we made my room totally cold and frozen, and what would happen is all of the little molecules that are moving around in my room would move slower and slower and slower. They would stop eventually bouncing into each other. There would be much less heat. There would be much less friction. And if you made my room absolute zero, like the coldest that it could possibly be, there would be zero molecular movement. All of these molecules would just be frozen there. It's essentially saying they no longer move through time. Time equals movement. My hand is moving through time. My hand is moving through time. If my hand is frozen, it's essentially occupying the same place in time over and over and over. It's no longer moving through time. That is what beings of pure entropy, consciousness, is supposed to do when it's not worthy of being in the time field. And this is big, because this is not like I'm some Christian biblical literalist saying like worthy, unworthy, you're going to heaven, you're going to hell. No, it's not like that at all. It's like saying this is crappy music. That's horrible music. That's not even music. That is crappy, crappy noise. As opposed to, that's a beautiful chord. We call that music because it has organized sound waves. If you are not filled with organized thought waves, you're not supposed to be alive. Those beings that are beings of entropy are not organized. They're not shaped right. They're not singing the right song. They're not playing the right music. They're not supposed to be able to be alive. All right, good to see you, Joelle. We're talking about the economy of hell. The fun, lovely topic of the economy of hell. So those beings, once they decided, wait a minute, I'm bored with falling backwards off of this giant tower and going into entropy. What I want to do is get energy. But wait a minute. I don't actually have a mouth with which to eat food. I don't run OS love. I spoke about this last week. Don't run the operating system known as love. You and me, everyone who's in this class, we run OS love. We literally keep our cells of our physical body alive by connecting to a giant network that's known as love. And right now in our expression of that, we eat physical food and breathe and drink water and poop and everything like that in order to keep our bodies alive. Those beings that were occupying the interstices, they're like, darn it, we don't have a body. We can't eat. We can't do this. They don't have bodies because if a body is like a guitar, they smashed their guitars on stage. Those beings, as I've explained in galactic history, came to this planet, tried to take over or demonically possess physical human bodies. They also tried to create a fake Merkaba. It all went horribly or wonderfully awry, and they got killed. They died. But instead of dying like good people are supposed to die and just being frozen on the membrane of time, but they're like, oh, good. Now that we're on the membrane of death, frozen on the membrane of death, they're like, oh, good. Now that we're on the membrane of death, we can totally subvert the time field and siphon energy off of the living. And all we have to do is subvert their genetic code so that instead of going in this perfectly aligned direction like this, we will make them go askew. And that's literally, I'm going to draw it out for you so that you can see that's literally, we can calculate what is happening. This is dark magic, and it's affecting our world right now. It's a part of our political structure and our economic structure. So let's say if this is, just to use a completely new, different color that we haven't used yet here today. If this orange line is the direction that you are supposed to be going in a perfected, divine body towards freedom and the infinite self-expression, and this purple line is what happens when beings that live on the interstices affect you. Aurora, how do they affect me? Hold on a minute. Let me drink some more water. This is like running a marathon for me, but I'm running really, really fast to do this. Aurora, how do those beings take my pen and make it go like this from this position to this position? How do they make me go from being a perfectly aligned orange arrow to being an askew purple arrow? And the answer is through genetic vulnerabilities. What they did when they, I'll go back to my face, when they invaded this planet. P.S. The invasion didn't happen in clank metal spaceships. We'll get into that in level 2, how experts do star travel. These beings, they didn't come in metal spaceships. They invaded the human genome. And when they invaded the genome, they made big, giant vulnerabilities. And the vulnerability, like think of it like a box through which they can then stick their own hand and grab out your joy, your life force energy, your good feelings, your also grief, sadness. Before death was invented, there was very little grief and sadness. There was very little to grieve, very little to be sad about. The invention of death was the invention of food that these beings could eat. They don't have a mouth to eat love. They can only eat lower vibration stuff. And I'm always cautious to say lower does not mean less good. It doesn't mean evil. But in this case, the lower, denser emotions like grief and sadness, jealousy, I'm just trying to think of some of these lower vibration emotions. Those are what these guys like to eat. And these guys have literally set up an entire social structure to farm humanity for that vibration of emotion. And vibration of emotion absolutely affects what your DNA is doing. And your DNA affects your emissions, your emotional emissions. So now we're at this point where we understand each one of us has genetic vulnerabilities, those big giant holes through which demons like to reach, and they will do things like they will be intrusive thoughts. The intrusive thoughts might create a particular emotional response, and they also can sometimes control behaviors. So this is what I'm talking about when I say you're trying to drive your car on the road of time, and someone else is violently jerking the steering wheel and turning your entire vehicle so that you go towards the membrane of death. How does this happen in practice? What happens is abuse. And much of this is based in sexual abuse. Now I have to talk about sexuality on this planet and how distorted it is in terms of unhealthy expression of life force energy. And again, I'm not saying this in order to alienate, that's the word, to alienate humanity from me. If you are a gay person, I do not hate you. I am not trying to alienate you with this information. What I'm trying to do is to give an energetic understanding, multidimensional viewpoint of what is going on with life force energy as it is expressed through sexuality, or the root chakras of humanity. Drinking more water here, okay? So sexuality is actually divine. It is actually something that is the most special, the most sacred thing that we have. You know, it's part of your body, and you own your own body, and expressing sexuality through your body is one of the most amazing, in a healthy way, is one of the most miraculous, amazing things that you can possibly do on this planet, or, you know, in this realm, in this form. And just like the human genome has been subverted, and human economy has been subverted, so too has human sexuality been subverted. So let me just say this. Sexuality is not something that is designed or intended for personal gratification. Sexuality is an expression of life force energy, and the end result, the intention, is procreation and the continuation of consciousness in life, in this area here that we know as the light, where we're circulating through the time field to be alive. In order to get into a body, you have to be born into a body. And the body is conceived through this divine, sacred expression known as sexuality. However, in this time and place, from the past, whatever, human history, what I am perceiving is a total distortion of life force energy through human sexuality. And like, we're in this era right here that is really a culmination of that distortion. So once again, I'm not trying to make anybody feel bad about themselves. And someone wrote in one of my, in comments in a previous YouTube, that they're homosexual, and they're saying that if I'm saying that sexuality and life force energy is supposed to be used only for the purposes of procreation, that they would feel that their life is worthless and that they would want to kill themselves. And I really have to say, like, why does a person in response feel that if you can't have sex and have an orgasm, that your life is over? Why is that considered to be the pinnacle of existence here? What I'm trying to say is that I look around at this society right now and I see many, many people who want to have self-gratification and have the feeling of having an orgasm. However, they do not necessarily want to have a child. And to me, that's like saying, I just want to mush around with a paintbrush and not actually end up with a painting. That is irresponsible. So first of all, like, when you're a little kid, before you are sexually active and before you're an adult, and I hope that everybody had an opportunity to have that portion of their life, there were a lot of things that you like to do other than just have sex. That the whole idea of like, oh no, if you can't have sex, if you're not interested in having sex to have a baby and to continue the species that you are a part of, then somehow your life is over. Like, life is about other things other than mere sexuality. However, in this society, the way that things are presented, it's like you need to have a sexual partner to go out to the movies. There's all these social things that are part of it. So first, there's all fantasies, both male and female, about getting married and being a bride or being a groom and what that means. And then there's also boyfriend-girlfriend fantasies, where it's like you go to the movies with your boyfriend or girlfriend. You do this, or you walk on the beach with your boyfriend or girlfriend. All of these things that are about the social, what are the words, like perks that you get because you are in a relationship that is a sexual relationship. The sexual relationship is supposed to end in having a baby. And so this is very big. Let's talk about choosing certain characteristics in the choice of sexual partner, in the choice of procreative partner. So in this time and place, many people separate or divorce the characteristics that they are attracted to in terms of personality, in terms of personality and biology, from the characteristics they would like to have with, a partner for mating. So it's like, let's say a woman is like, she's attracted to a guy who has a motorcycle. Like, the motorcycle has nothing at all to do with that person's personhood, their characteristics, who they are, the way they act, the way they feel. And it has nothing at all to do with their biology, about whether their cells are healthy, what is their DNA like, their familial heritage, and how that might interact with your familial heritage. It has nothing at all to do with that. So what I'm trying to say is, when any organism reaches adulthood and has the capacity to procreate sexually, it's like there is a responsibility that comes along with that, because it's not just about you making yourself happy. I think that is a very, very erroneous and harmful basic premise of this culture and this time and place. When I speak about these things, I am saying each one of us holds life force energy in trust. It's like life force energy comes to us, and we are allowed to and encouraged to express it through our sexuality in the appropriate forum with appropriate partners in order to procreate. And that it's not cool to be like, oh, it's me, it's my body, and I can do whatever I want with my body, and essentially alienate oneself from the rest of the time field. You're a part of the time field. You're not separate from the time field. You're part of a much, much larger organism. And your thoughts are connected to that organism, and your emotions are connected to that organism. And when you're expressing life force energy through sexuality, you're absolutely affecting the time field. That's one very, very profound time when your DNA is affecting other beings' DNA. And so in this time and place, people look at children as burdensome, a chore, an unwanted byproduct of sexuality. Like, everybody wants the orgasm, but then they don't want to actually get pregnant. They're like, oh no, they got pregnant. Oh no, what are they going to do with this baby? And then we'll also talk about dark magic and child sacrifice. So yeah, this has been going on for thousands of years, but basically it is the sense of having sex with the wrong people under the wrong circumstances and creating unwanted children, and then sacrificing them to be occupants of the membrane of death. So before I go any further, please never take my information out of context. Please never say, oh, Aurora said that these two people had sex, but they had a baby that wasn't a baby that was actually supposed to be in existence in the time field, so we can kill that baby. No. I am not saying that at all. Like, it's such a slippery slope to say that. No, it's not okay to say that there are beings that are in existence that shouldn't be here, so we should just get the guillotine or the machine gun and simply shoot them out of existence. No. What I'm trying to say is that everybody needs to take huge levels of personal responsibility in expressing sexuality and procreation, and make the people that are actually supposed to be in existence. So in exactly the same way that humans domesticated plants and animals by controlling their breeding structure, humans have been controlled by higher dimensional beings, the occupiers of the interstices, through controlling their breeding structure. That humans aren't necessarily allowed to choose their optimum partner through their natural feelings, that they are often forced or obliged to mate with and procreate with beings who are not optimum in every other term. So when I say obliged, what am I talking about? So in many, for thousands of years, women were disempowered in terms of choosing sexual partner. And that's the opposite of how it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be that women are actually the gatekeepers, and women actually determine which characteristics are passed on to the next generation by which characteristics they choose in their male partners. So if it's like, oh, I really, really love blue eyes, then I'm choosing to be a gatekeeper and only pass on those genetic traits of beings who have blue eyes or who have whatever physical characteristics or whatever personality characteristics. That is appropriate. That is totally appropriate. It's like, that's the way it's supposed to be. It's like the artist being able to choose which colors one puts on the paintbrush and say, I'm choosing red, I'm choosing blue, I'm choosing yellow. Women are supposed to be able to choose which colors they add to the potential for life that exists within their womb. However, due to economic and social distortions, what often has happened is women are either totally disempowered in the term of like being used as chattel or raped or forcibly impregnated, or they are coerced with money. So that's like women being disempowered and not having their own source of money and having to be owned by either a father or a husband, and then often finding a husband who might be old, fat, and gross, yet rich, right? Yet wealthy. This is like the old paradigm. Like, I'm really in love with that guy over there. He's nice and handsome, but he's young and poor. And then there's this guy over here, and he's big and fat and old and gross, and not, a good genetic partner, but has money, has security, will take care of the babies that we make together. So these are all told distortions in almost every, and it's very disturbing, actually, when I look around at the way that sexuality is being expressed here. I know Eric is saying, uh-oh, Aurora is talking eugenics. Like, I'm always trying to be really, really clear. I never want anyone to do any kind of, taking my work out of context and saying, yes, none of those babies are supposed to be in existence, so let's kill them all. Like, no, it's not like that. Please do not, if you're a gay person, no, don't kill gay people. If you're a gay person, please don't kill yourself. I'm drinking water here. So there's also an interesting conversation to be had about, why does homosexuality exist? Does it exist naturally? Does it exist only as a byproduct of chemical contamination or exposure to in the womb to endocrine mimickers that or stress on the mother? Like, there's all these different questions that I think are worthy of speaking about. If we move even beyond homosexuality, if we go into things that I would define as truly sexually aberrant, but what I'm trying to say is certain sexual practices do not result, thank you, you found the word for me, endocrine disruptors. Certain sexual practices do not result in procreation. And I am not an advocate for those sexual practices. So this might even be really, really radical to say in this time and place, because in this time and place, it's like the Babylon culture. Everyone's like, do whatever you want. It's not hurting anyone. But it's like anal sex. I am not a proponent of anal sex in any way. And that's because you are taking this life force energy that comes to you, that you are holding in trust as this incredibly, incredibly valuable thing, and then using it in a way that can never lead to procreation. That is and it also is a use of the body that is not a respectful use of the body. And same thing with oral sex. This can never lead to procreation. And this is a radical thing for me to say, because everyone's going to be like, but wait a minute, everybody is having anal and oral sex. This is what it's, and then they're going to say, Aurora, you're a biblical literalist, you're a born again Christian, you're like a Bible thumper. No to any of this. I'm actually an extraterrestrial who looks at this human body and who says, wow, I see that the way that things are supposed to be functioning, and then I see the way that they're being expressed in this human society, and there is very little overlap in what is supposed to be versus what is actually here. So yeah, there's huge issues with so males being overstimulated. Some males are stimulated in the presence of sock puppets. One can never procreate with the sock puppet. There is something wrong if a person is sexually aroused by an inanimate object. That is really a challenge. Like, that is not what's supposed to be going on. So Joelle is asking, what about masturbation? This is a really good question. So yes, on the one hand, your body is your own to do with as you please. But on the other hand, when you're using sexual energy, you are connecting to something much larger. So let's say, like, if a guy is masturbating and he is envisioning voluptuous Marilyn Monroe, he is actually connecting his tendril of attention to the persona of Marilyn Monroe. And what's actually happening, because Marilyn Monroe was a construct that was created out of, Norma Jean, like an actual woman, or let's say an actual person who then had a lot of plastic surgery and changed their name and was turned into a cultural icon. That's not even the real person. So what's happening is you're being harvested, like milked like a cow. And this is for both males or females. If you are masturbating and you're envisioning a partner that is not your real partner, all of your sexual... In the process of sexuality, I hope that we're all mature enough to talk about this. In the actual moment of intercourse, what you are thinking about when you are having sex is what you are creating. Our minds are creating all the time. What you're thinking about with your mind when you're in the actual act of sex is really, really amplified. And if you're thinking about making love to Marilyn Monroe or any other sex symbol, quote unquote, your energy is being diverted to that person, and it's essentially being siphoned off into this larger system of dark magic. And it is really, really challenging to just express one's sexuality in a healthy way and not have it be siphoned off into dark magic. So here's a couple of things that I have to say. A lot of the sexual posturing is totally unnatural. And it is taught to children from a very young age. Like children who are 3 years old know how to mimic adults, and they learn how to do sexual posturing, sex dancing, twerking, all those things. You know, it used to be like, oh, don't let the kids watch MTV because they're going to learn to dance, you know, like slutty dances and everything like that. This is walking in a certain way, like to sashay in a certain way. All of these things, these are all artificial constructs that have nothing to do with actual expression of true sexuality. These are human social constructs, and they are taught, they're so pervasive, they're so profound in this world that it is hard to find a genuine expression of just true sexuality, which is the way when your body is healthy and you are connected to life force energy, you have sexuality, and it is the way it is supposed to be. And it's not something that is an affectation, is what I'm trying to say. It is not like holding your hair in a certain way, holding your face in a certain way. And now with cameras and selfies and all these things, people are all about trying to make themselves look sexy. It's not real sexuality. I know there's all these questions. Okay, wait. Okay, Christine, this is very interesting. Christine is saying, I have memories of doing temple work in ancient Egypt where the sexual energy was utilized in different ways, like revitalizing the endocrine system. Now we're getting, like when I guess when people in this time and place would call it sex magic. Sex is magic. It is one of the most primary and profound expressions of magic. And sex in other cultures and in other times and places has been recognized as a profound ritual. Here, it is the most casual, it is approached as the most casual thing, you know, to go out, get drunk, find a partner, and simply like fritter away one's sexuality. People do it in bathrooms, like toilets. People have sex in toilets. To me, that is unimaginable. Like, you know, whatever, they think it's very punk rock. Like, go to the punk rock club and they're going to find a partner. They're going to have sex in the toilets. Like, to me, that is horrible. That is, I mean, I can't even express how horrible that is. So, here's another question. What about if you're using it for self-healing or manifestation, or to send to the planet for healing? So that is something I would absolutely advocate for. Like if you were masturbating, if you were having your own individual experience of your own individual sexuality, connecting to the earth, connecting to the sun and the stars, and for purposes of personal healing, healing of the planet, what are the other things you said? Yes. Manifestation. What if your thoughts during that moment of sexuality, what if you were actually doing cosmic lovemaking? What if you were actually thinking about a solution? Yes. And Christina is saying galactic orgasm. So I would say that is an appropriate, laudable use of sexuality. I'm not saying that this is like the world of repression, where it's like, oh my God, like in the Middle Ages or the Dark Ages, people in Europe, they used to sew themselves into their long underwear because the church told them, like, never touch your bits, never touch your naughty bits, never wash your naughty bits. They would literally put up, you know, like kind of like heavy woolen garments, and, you know, like they would like sew up like you just lived in that for many months at a time to stay warm. No, I'm not advocating for that at all. No, because sexual repression then makes people extremely distorted. What I am advocating for is a profound healing of sexuality. Why is sexuality in this way? And I have about 10 more minutes of this presentation, then we'll get into level 2. Why is sexuality so profoundly in need of healing? Because of the distortion of genetics. So first of all, in this time and place, it is absolutely a miracle that anybody conceives a child, because everybody's been blinded. Part of what you're supposed to be able to do in terms of having multidimensional perception is to be able to not only see who you're supposed to have sex with, like you're supposed to know. This is amazing to me. Okay, just brief anecdote. So when I first got here as Aurora, right, I was like meeting lots of new people. I didn't have a place to stay, so I always would like make a new friend and stay at their place. And there's one person, I went to their place, and they're like, don't worry, they didn't harm me or anything like that. They were like, let's watch Sex and the City, this show, like while we're eating some food. I'm like, I was so happy that, you know, they were sharing their food with me, and then I was going to watch an Earth TV show, and I watched this show, and I was appalled by the values that I saw expressed in that TV show. I was kind of thinking like, maybe it's a comedy and I'm not getting it. I couldn't believe that it was actually being presented seriously, that was considered to be good, proper behavior of, you know, essentially whatever, I want to say predatory. It's a predatory sexual approach. And since then, I've had to have my eyes opened, and I've had to learn a lot. I've been extremely naive about sexuality and the way that it's expressed here. And yes, for many people, it is a predatory activity. That's the antithesis of what it's supposed to be. That is not what it's supposed to be at all. Like, you're not supposed to be like walking around like I'm hungry and I'm looking to see who I can consume out there and try not to be consumed by larger animals. Like, no, that's not what it's supposed to be like at all. It's supposed to be that you actually have multidimensional perception. You can see who your partner is supposed to be. You can drive on the road of time to be able to find that partner. You're supposed to be able to even see your offspring. The idea of having a baby that you've never met before, to me, is wild and unimaginable. And so there are some indigenous cultures where they actually do this, where the mothers can speak with the disembodied or not yet embodied potential life form that they are going to carry, and have a whole relationship and agreement and invitation before that child actually even gets into the womb to be able to gestate. That's how it's supposed to be. You're supposed to be able to see who your mate is before you actually meet them, so you know you're meeting the right person. You're supposed to be guided to them, and you're also supposed to, when you're choosing to have a child, and you're supposed to consciously want to have a child. It's not like, oh, the unwanted byproduct of using a paintbrush with paint. You're supposed to be doing a painting intentionally to have a baby because you want to have a baby, and then you're supposed to be able to talk with the spirit, or not yet embodied potential for life, and be like, yes, I invite you to come in. And then you actually gestate the carrier for the container for consciousness, and then you actually give birth to it. Like, wow, what a completely different experience than the way most people are having it here. We're living in a distorted time field. Now I have to talk about the economy of hell, and I have to talk really, really fast in order to do this. Okay, so in the economy of hell, it acts just like a pyramid scheme. If you know what an earthly pyramid, the economy of Earth mirrors and reflects and is completely structured just like the economy of hell. Okay, hold on a second. So in a pyramid scheme, the people who incept the pyramid are they're the guys at the top, and they're like the executives, and they get most of the money. And then in order to make the scheme continue working, you always have to bring in fresh meat. Always have to get new people to sign up. So it could be, a pyramid scheme can be anything. It can be like, it can be selling, lip gloss or essential oil. The product itself doesn't matter. But what matters is that when you let's say you're a new, you just signed up. You're a new, oh my goodness, good. Wait, before I get going on this, dog boss just came up. We gotta say hi. Chiki's here. Hey, everybody. All right, good. Now we got the boss in the house. Yeah, wonderful. Thank you, Chiki. Wonderful to see you. Thank you. Oh, good girl. We love you. I'm so happy that you hopped on board. So when you are a new signee, when you've just signed up, you have to then recruit. You're a new recruit. You have to then recruit 3 people. And this is the way this works. So demons live on the membrane of death. They don't have their own life force energy. I'll take all the kisses. Thank you, boss. Sorry, guys. Sorry. I know it's a little bit of an interruption, but it's worth it, right? We love it. Yeah. This is the wiggle butt. Okay, wiggle butt. And she licks all my cherry lip gloss off too. Okay, all right. We love you. You're a good girl. You're wonderful. You're wonderful. Thank you. The first demons that ever decided that they were going to stop going into entropy and they were going to start siphoning energy off the living, those are the guys at the top of the pyramid. And essentially what they do is they eat souls, or they own souls. And the souls is the amount of energy that's been siphoned off. If this is the direction you're supposed to go and you've gone at this angle, that amount, 32 degrees worth of energy we have siphoned off. How do they do this? They do this through intrusive thoughts, by coming in through genetic portals. And what they also do is they have a negative impact on people's life trajectory. And a lot of this has to do with verbal, physical, and most importantly, sexual abuse. And when people are sexually abused, that is one way to completely siphon energy off from the root chakra, from the basis of life force, from where you're connected to the earth and to, the origins of life, to siphon energy off of there. So that can be done by inappropriate sexual contact in childhood with an adult. And so sexual abuse is not necessarily like, kids playing doctor together, even though sometimes it is in that form, especially if it's older siblings, but often it is adults. Why in the world should an adult want to procreate with a child? Children are not sexually mature. It is an aberration. It is a total distortion of the direction that sexual life force energy should flow. Sexual life force energy should not flow from adults to children. It should not flow from adults to sock puppets. It should not flow from adults to animals. It should flow from adults to appropriate sexual partners who can actually procreate. And I know that's a really radical thing to say because everyone is like, oh, so have sex with inanimate objects, have sex with a mannequin, have sex with whatever you want. No, that is all a total lie. And we are living in this world of lies. So what happens in the economy of hell is the really high up guys. So look, touching an actual human is like scrubbing a toilet. They're like, oh, I don't want to touch an actual human. These are like really profoundly evil beings that are the definition of unloving. They don't want to have to interact with you, a being of pure love. No, that's like scrubbing a toilet. But they want the energy. They want the money. They want to get paid. So the guys at the top of the pyramid hire guys at the lower end of the pyramid. And then those guys have to get their recruits and their recruits and their recruits. This is a pyramid scheme. The economy of hell is a pyramid scheme. Everybody in hell does not have their own source of life force energy. You and me, we are alive. My heart is beating. I am connected to the life force energy. I don't have to get it by raping someone else. I've got it. I don't have to, do something illegal or harmful in order to get it. And these beings, they don't got it. They got to do something illegal and harmful in order to get it. And when they get it, it's never enough. It's exactly like a drug, something like cocaine or, heroin or something like that, a highly refined amount of consciousness that makes them feel temporarily good and temporarily satiated. So now let me say this. In this time and place, people are waking up to, pedogate, pizzagate, sexual assault of young people, systemic sexual assault of young people in order to feed this larger system. And some of them are calling it adrenochrome. This is a very literal interpretation of something that is purely energetic. So I'm understanding that it's like the necessary integument because some people just can't wrap their brains around the idea that energy is food. So they have to think, oh, children are tortured and then a syringe draws, fluid out of their brain and then, fancy, very fucked up people, pardon my French, drink or eat or inject that substance that was removed via syringe. I'm telling you this, guys. They don't need a syringe. Like, it's energy. It's done energetically. It is the rape and the intrusive thoughts. That doesn't have to happen with a syringe. They don't have to put a microchip in your brain to make this happen. It's all done energetically. And the siphoning off of energy is also all done energetically. So it's a little bit too literal to be like, oh yeah, there's a system of adrenochrome that's being harvested from infants. No, it's actually, because then what you're going to say is, well, like, look, you might have been abused as an altar boy by some horrible, filthy priest, but they didn't take your adrenochrome, right? They absolutely did. They absolutely took your life force energy. Hold on. Okay, and I'll answer that question. It's a really good question. They absolutely took your life force energy and siphoned it off. And so let's use that example, an altar boy that's been abused by a priest. Altar boy was originally going in this lovely, beautiful direction. I'll use my pen to be consistent in this video, going in this beautiful, lovely direction, and then they are abused by a priest. The priest removed 32 degrees worth of trajectory of that person. That person that young boy went from being confident and having a healthy view of sexuality to being, disturbed, having, emotional perturbations, and having a distorted view of sexuality. Because not only was it non-procreative sexual contact between an adult and a child, it was between two males. And again, if you're gay, I'm not hating you, please. I'm not trying to alienate you. But I'm trying to say that this is an example of an aberration, something that's not supposed to exist, sexual energy going in the wrong direction. And then that young person who's had their energy now turned to the side, what they learned was, oh, sexual energy can go in the wrong direction. And their life can also go in the wrong direction. And this is, let's say, and this goes to Joelle's question. I'm going to answer your question. The question of human conduits for malevolent beings that are not embodied. The beings that live on the interstices, they're not embodied. They don't want bodies. They look at bodies as ugly, gross, fat, greasy, disgusting, non-necessary items because they don't want to have to eat and poop, but they want you to eat and poop like a farm animal. And then they want to harvest energy off of you. So what they do, so again, touching a human directly is like scrubbing a toilet. Ew, I don't want to touch a human. They get their emissaries to do it. So their emissaries are low-level minions, the recruits that just joined the pyramid scheme. Here's the secret. All of these demonic recruits. So demonic recruits begin in the flesh. So to continue with this analogy, the horrible, filthy priest that is abusing, young altar boys, he is essentially a genetic conduit, like those big, giant vulnerabilities in his genes through which evil beings act, and he's not stopping them. We all have a choice. We all have willpower. Some evil thing wants to live and act through you. You get the chance to say no thank you. That is literally what I did with Flying Rainbow Lasagna. On a very profound level, something very evil wanted to reach into the genetic quotient of this body and make me a portal for evil. And I said, no, I don't want to be pure evil. And no, I don't want to die. So I'm going to Flying Rainbow Lasagna instead. This is the ultimate, there's no excuse. This wipes away any excuse. You're not allowed to use excuses and be like, a demon was acting through me. It's not my fault. They made me do that. I'm sorry, but screw you. Screw you, lame ass losers who make excuses for your own behavior. You need to take responsibility. I'm not speaking to the members of this class. I'm speaking to the horrible rapists that exist in this time and place. These rapists need to take responsibility for their own actions. Remember this, like in this time of healing, they'll come forward and they'll be like, well, I raped those altar boys, but it's not my fault. A demon was acting through me. Forgive me. Let me get into heaven. No, the answer is no, you don't get to get into heaven, which in level 2 I'll talk about is state of mind, and I need to get to the rest of these questions. But yeah, the behaviors are totally inexcusable. There's no justification for them. There's nothing that allows that to happen. So in the flesh, beings begin to become demons or harvesters for this life force energy to go into the membrane of death. And let's also say, the guys that are doing the Yule Dog Festival. Sorry to talk about this in front of the cheeky, but you know what I'm talking about. In the Far East, the dog meat festival, it's not bad enough that they're eating dog meat, but that the dogs need to be tortured first. And sometimes they're stolen, they're house pets, and they're stolen house pets who then get tortured and then get turned into barbecue. That is horrible. And there are actual, the people that are doing that slaughtering, like that's not sexual aberration, but that is a total aberration of life force energy. That's not the way food is supposed to be created or animals are supposed to be treated. And they are literal humans that are the embodiment for demons. So those are like the lowest people on the pyramid, that actually beings on the pyramid. The lowest beings on the pyramid of the economy of hell are the beings who actually have a physical body and have aligned themselves and allied themselves with hell-dwelling beings, demons. And they say, I'll do what you want me to do. And then when I go to hell, you'll give me a cushy job, right? You'll give me the stuff that I want. That's what they've signed up for the pyramid scheme. And what they don't understand is you never get paid out. When you join a pyramid scheme, you pay in, you don't get paid out. The guys at the top get paid out. So the guys that started, like they talk about BitConnect, this is like a recent crypto pyramid scheme. The guys that started it got a lot of money. They became millionaires. They needed to get everyone else to put in their life savings and put in their money and work hard and everything like that so that they could have plenty of money. Then they dropped the whole system, and the guys that put their life savings into it never got paid out. So basically the people that are doing the dog meat festival and the rapist priests and all these other horrible sexual miscreants, they think, oh, they're one day going to be at the top of the pyramid of hell. I'm snarfling, I'm laughing. That ain't going to happen. That's never going to happen. The guys at the top of the pyramid of hell are always going to maintain their power position. They're not going to let go of anything. They're not going to let someone else come and get richer than they are in terms of human souls or life force energy. So, but this is the impetus. This is why. And so this is in our world right now. There are celebrities, there are politicians, there are newscasters who are low-level minions entering the pyramid scheme. Are we there yet? Are we understanding this yet? We can name them by name. Do you want to name them? You want to name like the pop stars that have made choices? Like, let's name Lady Gaga. First of all, they almost always have a persona. P.S. Aurora is not a persona. Aurora is my real name. It's who I really am. Aurora is who I am in the galaxy. Aurora is who I am on my driver's license. It's not like I'm, someone else that's wearing a mask called Aurora. I'm really Aurora. But Lady Gaga is actually, a woman named Stephanie who then wears a mask called Lady Gaga. And she rose to power by killing her rival. That's right. She pushed her rival off the top of a building. They said, oh, it's just suicide. And so what happens is this is soul stealing. That rival who died went into a pocket world. And she's in a pocket world. She's like in between being alive and being dead. And all of her creativity, her persona, or the songs that she's writing and everything like that are all being siphoned off to Lady Gaga. Lady Gaga's got her like in a little pocket world in her pocket, and that she owns and controls that soul. She's got a soul, but it's not her own. She has the soul of the person that she killed. That's not what it's supposed to be like. Like, look, in the Native American or the indigenous traditions, you know, if you eat a buffalo, then that buffalo comes inside of you and it becomes a part of you. That's a beautiful divine partnership the way it's supposed to be. This is not about that at all. Like I said, sacrifice. Sacrifice means you're killing something not for food. Lady Gaga did not eat her rival, even though a lot of this comes down to actual cannibalism. But that she ingested the soul of her victim, and then that became part of what is, yeah, thank you. Did you mentioning Abramovich? Let's not be afraid to name names. Hold on a minute. So first of all, Abramovich is the present generation expression of a lineage demon. They're lineage demons that go, because remember, they come in through portals in your DNA. So it's like, oh, this ancestor had this portal, this genetic propensity towards being a portal, and passed on that genetic propensity towards all of their offspring. And this is called intergenerational soul transfer, and it is part of dark magic, the aberration known as dark magic. It's a technological way of subverting death, where you're supposed to be recycled and actually face responsibility for the things that you've done by like just kicking the can down the road. I'm going to hop into the next generation, hop into the next generation, hop into the next generation. And so, yeah, under the guise of quote unquote art, which is, I knew it was crap before I even knew about spirit cooking, but yeah, under the guise of art that Abramovich is using, basically, it is another minion, an embodied demon, or a person who has allied herself with these occupiers of the interstices and does their work in terms of murder, sexual abuse, and also getting other people to join the pyramid scheme. So when Abramovich gets other celebrities, the only way they become celebrities is by joining the pyramid scheme. And these beings are completely unremarkable. They are unremarkable. Lady Gaga would not be doing anything on a stage. Let's say Katy Perry. Katy Perry is a good example of this. She is quite unremarkable. She's not really a good musician. She's not really very special or intelligent. She has been falsely elevated through her participation in this economy of hell. And for many of these people that we see on a stage, who they really would be if they hadn't been falsely elevated, they'd be like a retail shop clerk. Like Katy Perry would probably be like working at the Gap or something like that, and, you know, helping you buy a pair of pants. She would not be singing on a stage as a well-known musician. And people in this world, because we're in this inverted world, who actually are supposed to be on a stage singing and sharing their artistry with people, are instead working in a retail position. They are suppressed. And the way that they've been suppressed is their trajectory was going like this, and then they were raped or sexually abused or victimized, and 32 degrees of their trajectory was siphoned off into the hell realm, and they then went in this direction, and then they get to die. It's not even bad enough that you didn't get to live your true life, but then they die. And when they die, a lot of the time, they spend time in the hell realm, not just dissolving immediately into entropy because of guilt. And this is part of what keeps consciousnesses in the hell realm. They're told, oh, you belong here. Oh, you belong here because of blah, blah, bad thing that you've done, or blah, blah thing. You deserve it somehow, which is like telling a rape victim that you deserve it. So just to summarize all of this, humanity has been raped. The genetic code has been degraded. The beings who raped humanity and degraded the genetic code placed into the genetic code the tendency to worship their rapists as gods, and then tell them, oh, if you do this, this, and this, then when you die, you'll have a divine afterlife. And all those celebrities that are participating in literally the pyramid scheme that is the economy of hell, they're all being promised a wonderful afterlife or a wonderful non-physical existence. And this is what they think, that they're going to die and go into this, you know, essentially hell realm where they're going to be like at the top of the food chain. That's like, ha ha ha. The Rothschilds feel this way too. Oh, like they spend their lives oppressing humanity and they're serving their true master, which is essentially Lucifer and Satan. Hey, Aurora, what's the difference between Lucifer and Satan? Satan and satanic technology refers to a particular group of space races, non-terrestrial beings that use technology, and the technology that their lights don't run on electrons flowing in a wire, and they don't pay like, the electric company money for their light bulbs. What they do is they rape and victimize beings like you and I that have DNA, and then they siphon off that energy, and they use that in order to run their enormous, we could call it like mainframes or servers or apparatuses that control reality. And those apparatuses that control reality have also been, like, think about war. Think about war as not a human creation, not a basic expression of the violence of human nature, which I don't think actually exists. I don't think humans are basically violent as their nature. I think that this is all an overlay, and that especially now, the machinations that lead to worldwide war are completely controlled by these occupiers of the interstices who control and act through politicians. Who's on the bottom of the pyramid of the economy of hell? Celebrities, politicians, people that are in charge of policy making, religious leaders, economic leaders, like basically the people that have been running the society up until this point. And those beings have their position because they have chosen to participate in the economy of hell. That's the point. So people being like, oh, the white hats in the CIA. There are no white hats in the CIA. In order to get their job, they had to choose to be a part of this economy of hell. And they're the lowest level. They're the new recruits. So it's like in the mafia. Think of this as the mafia. The mafia is very much, based upon this. So blah, blah. Like in this economy, the regular economy, like, you start off at the worst position, the worst jobs, and then you slowly work your way up. But there's this glass ceiling. You can never quite get past the glass ceiling. It's exactly the same way in the economy of hell. But the idea is that they're told, like, if you do more and more evil things, that then you will rise higher and higher on the food chain. You'll get more and more. But it doesn't actually work that way. Like, it's always, cruelly ironic and doesn't actually work that way. So the living beings that have genetic portals that willingly allow demons to act through them, they literally make an agreement. This is like ancient Faustian bargain. This is the myth of the Faustian or Faustian bargain, or the red shoes. The red shoes, the ballerina makes a deal with the devil to be able to be the best dancer ever. Or Crossroads, the guy who's the best guitar player, he made a deal with the devil to be the best blues guitar player. Like, these are ancient myths that are running through our culture. The idea of making a deal with satanic beings that use technology to control the program of reality. This is what I'm talking about. We're in a simulation. Don't be upset about it. We're in a simulation. And yes, up until this point, malevolent beings have been controlling, pushing and pulling the levers of the cosmos to make things happen. P.S. I won't tell you about the bars on your cage without telling you about the key. You get to push and pull the levers of the cosmos. Someone mentioned something about my arm muscles. My arm muscles all come from doing the flying rainbow lasagna. I got these from pushing and pulling the levers of the cosmos and making good things happen. Making rectification of the time field. Making us go from being askew like this to writing, realigning all of these timelines into the way they're supposed to be. In my own body, and in my music is emanating outward and affecting other beings. So in this, it's very, if you look around the world and you are very disturbed by what you see, your response is appropriate. Now you understand also why the dreaded lesson 18, this is a pretty effed up lesson, because it can definitely make you feel despondent, like, oh, there's nothing to be done. There is something to be done. The answer is flying rainbow lasagna, that you begin with your own genetic code, encrypt your own DNA, don't allow any of these beings to step through portals to act through you. So there are overt agreement. Some people make a deal with the devil. Some people it is unconscious. They're like, oops, I didn't mean to do that, but a demon was unconsciously acting through me. And that's another totally unacceptable excuse on mere lack of consciousness. Ooh, it wasn't my fault. I was unconscious. It was my unconscious dark side. Duh. What you're supposed to be doing here in life is learning about your unconscious dark side and reining it in. That's what you're supposed to be doing. It's not an excuse to say like, oh, oops, sorry, I stepped on your toes. A demon was acting through me, but it was through my unconscious dark side. I didn't know what I was doing at the time, so just let me into heaven. No, actually no. And heaven is a state of mind. I'll do that in level 2. No, what you're actually supposed to do is look at your unconscious dark side and not allow it to act through you, and fill your genetic vulnerabilities, like close down those doors so that evil beings can't act through you. So I'm going to get through all of these questions and everything like that too. But the basics of it are that There are embodied humans that are part of this economy of hell. Then there are the lowest level of disembodied humans, the recently dead. And they are scrubbing the toilets. They are intruders, mental intruders that come in through the genetic code, and they will poke and prod you. And they'll be like, you deserve to feel bad because of something that happened when you were in 3rd grade, or you deserve to feel bad because of something that happened yesterday. Like this is what I had to learn about human socialization. Like you go to a party, your party is supposed to actually feed you socially. You're supposed to go to a party, meet other people, and then return home feeling like, wow, that was so much fun. And I met all these people and they thought that I was a great person. But what I learned from watching TV shows and things like that in this place, that most people, they go to a party and they feel like everything they're saying is wrong. And then when they go home, they spend the entire time going over in their mind all the things that they said wrong, that they did wrong. And instead of feeling fed, like improved, stronger, like more hopeful, more joyful, instead what they feel is more depressed, more worthless, more hopeless. They don't, humans aren't feeding one another. Humans are feeding off of one another. And then I also had to learn about this, the tendency to cannibalize. Cannibalize doesn't just mean like, like you're eating someone else's flesh. It can mean you are feeling better at someone else's expense. Physical comedy is cannibalism. If you're going to laugh because someone else is falling down the stairs and getting a concussion, you are literally a cannibal eating their energy. And this is the beginning of entering the pyramid scheme of hell. If you want to eat other people's misery, then please watch physical comedy or any kind of comedy that cuts down other people, makes them feel bad, like yo mama this and all of that. To me, that's not funny at all. This is why I don't watch a lot of TV and movie, and I don't participate in a lot of, what are called normal human activities, because to me, that's very unhealthy. So yeah, even comparing yourself to others, being like, I'm going to feel better at someone else's expense. Like my hair is much longer than that person's hair. I'm a better person. I'm going to make myself feel better by comparing my hair to them. Or my bank account is bigger than that person. Or my car is nicer than that person. Or my dog is cuter than that person's dog. Or any of those things. All of that is participating in the economy of hell. When you really have real life force energy and you're really connected to the divine, you don't need to do these false, cheap comparisons in order to feel good about yourself. You naturally feel good about yourself. You're like, wow, I like my hair. Instead of my hair is longer than that guy's hair. You're like, oh, I like my dog. Instead of saying my dog is cuter than that guy's dog. Like you don't have to do, my necklace, honey. You don't have to do all these different silly things where you are only gaining a feeling of goodness by context, by looking at other beings and lauding yourself in comparison to them. And that's also why I see a lot of that in the creative community too. Like I'm an artist, I make artwork and music. And there's a lot of people that are like, oh yeah, I'm a better artist than that guy. Like that guy can't even paint, that guy can't even do this and that. And it's like that, like you should feel good about your work without having to say like you're better than someone else in this type of comparison. So there are the beings that then are disembodied and they poke and prod and they make you feel bad. That's what when you come home from the party and you're feeling bad, you're like, oh, I saw this pretty girl and then I said the stupidest thing and now I'm a stupid jerk and no one's ever going to like me. That's not you talking to yourself. That's one of these low-level toilet scrubbers getting you to emit dissonance, getting you to emit ugly music, and you're literally driving towards the membrane of death. And instead of being like happy and filled with energy, it makes your shoulders go down and it makes you bend forward like this and it makes you feel depressed and less worthy and lower. And this is the economy of hell. And our entire political system is shaped on the economy, based on the economy of hell. And our economic system in the physical realm is based on the economy of hell. And let me get to questions. Because I'm sure there's, all right. This is interesting. Eric says, I grew up in Iran, but was born in America, and they all know about the jinn, that's interesting, who have no soul or creativity. Thank you. They don't have a connection to life force energy. Genies and jinn, parasites and ankle biters. Very good. I appreciate what you're saying. Okay, so Joel asked, are these beings behind the scenes, are they satanic cult people or possessing them? All right, so this is I kind of already answered it. It's not an excuse to say that one is demonically possessed. In the satanic, so also people talk about reptile people, David Icke and the reptile people, and they think like, oh, Prince Charles and the Queen of England are literally turning into scaly green reptilians. Like, don't be so literal. Again, it's like being too literal with the adrenochrome being exerted from people's brains. They do have reptilian overlays. They're in their genetic code. It's a lineage. Do you get it? I told you, family demons being passed down from lineage from previous generations because of the tendency to have certain genetic portals. So there are disembodied beings that live on the membranes of death that would be called reptilians based on their value system. And what they do is they act through human portals. So the Queen of England is not just like some little old lady. She's some little old lady who also happens to have a genetic propensity to be a really good antenna for evil and let evil act through her in all these different ways. And this is how we can also understand the United States presidency, all these different presidents who all end up being, you know, like distant cousins when you look at their lineages, because they're excellent genetic portals for particular demonic beings to act and live through them. Are we understanding this now? Okay. Okay. And a few more things about Abramovich. This is in reference to Joelle's comment there. The in public stuff being mock rituals. So this is the whole idea, like that, the idea of performance art. And to me, like, art means you actually have like a pencil or a paintbrush and you're actually creating an object, and that you create something that's an artifact. Like here, like this is a painting over here. This painting, even if I'm not here, it will still be here, and you can hang it on a wall and someone could look at it in thousands of years. That a performance art is not that. If performance art is not something, it is ephemeral. It is not something that is actual thing. It's not an actual thing. It's not an actual object. I mean, it's a complete, they're bullshit artists. Pardon me for saying so. They have created a thought structure that allows them to do nothing and yet be paid as if they have done something. The modern art world in this time and place, I have learned, is mostly a satanic money laundering, what's the word that I'm looking for? Like money laundering system, wherein it's not at all about creating an artifact or an object that says something about society, which is what art is supposed to be. It is about creating a commodity that can be traded and that can be used as a marker for wealth, and also that can be used as an excuse for sexual energy being used as a commodity. And that's another thing that I had to say in this particular recording about the distortion of sexuality in this time and place. Sexual commodification. This is beyond mere prostitution, where, you know, it's a very overt quid pro quo, but this goes into everything. What would be considered the casting couch, which is not acceptable in any way. The idea that divine sexuality is used as an audition for any secular position, like to be able to, to be able to be an actress or be a musician or get your foot into any door, get any opportunity, should not involve selling or commodifying access to your sexuality. And this is what it often is. Sometimes it's in the form of like, it's an unspoken form. It's like you have to go to the right party, you have to meet the right person, and you have to sleep with the right person who then will give you the audition. It's not always an overt quid pro quo. However, any commodification of sexuality takes something that is the most valuable thing. It's so valuable, it's priceless, you can't put a price on it, puts a price on it, and then turns it into something that can be traded. And so that's what a lot of this quote unquote art that is happening in the art world right now is not actual art. And like the objects or the sculptures that are on the wall, it's totally arbitrary. It doesn't even matter what is being displayed. What is actually happening is an opportunity to harvest sexual energy from prospective participants. Like, oh, you want to be in this gallery? Well, all you have to do is sleep with that guy, or all you have to do is suck that. Oh, that genitalia. I'm sorry, I'm being a little bit crude in this recording. Let's go on to the next question. Eric is agreeing. There's almost too many to name names, but it's pretty much up until this point in this world, and I don't want this to be considered to be normal or whatever, but it's just been up until this point in this world, in order to be on the radio or to be well known in media or to have a book published, you know, widely or anything like that. Yes, it requires participating in the economy of hell at the low end of the pyramid. Let me go to Pedro says, if you see something wrong on TV or in movies, don't just ignore it or accept it. Say aloud, I don't accept this, it is wrong. I absolutely agree. And you know, to me, watching TV and movies is not that entertaining to me, because what I do is I watch the actors and the actresses and I watch them like get co-opted as the show goes on. So I really liked that show, Mr. Robot, and I really liked the the storyline of what was going on, and I couldn't get past watching the main character. I think his name is Rami or Rami. This young guy who's a young actor. I see in his face. I watch him getting co-opted. You can see somebody's face change, and you can see them lose their humanity, and you can see that he has eventually made some kind of a deal, and then all of a sudden he's the lead star in the Freddie Mercury biopic, and it's like he made some kind of a deal. He made some kind of contracts, and I see women also, their faces change because you think they're just getting plastic surgery. P.S. Cosmetic surgery is a lot more than cosmetic surgery these days. Oh my goodness. They're putting all sorts of transhumanist accoutrements into the face when they do these cosmetic surgeries. And I don't just mean microchips, but I mean things that are unnatural to the point that makes people begin to start to participate in the economy of hell unwittingly, because like their face is melting. Like they have to keep on getting more and more and more injections because, like that movie Brazil, my complications had complications and their face is melting off or whatever. Joelle is saying toilet scrubbers are more like toilet cloggers. That's a really, really good point. All of this is about taking energy that is supposed to be flowing like a healthy circulatory system of time and either truncating it, like pinching it off so it doesn't flow there, or maybe siphoning it off and making it go someplace where it's not supposed to go, or maybe stopping the flow entirely. And all of that is, it affects the entire time field. This is the whole point. So it's like, oh, what does it matter if, Lady Gaga is shaking her ass on a stage? I'm just a regular person and it's not affecting my life. It's actually affecting your life. It's actually affecting all of our lives, that people who are not supposed to be elevated into politics are elevated into politics, and that those people are running your freaking country, running international politics. Oh my God. I mean, do we even need to mention like the Clintons being completely demonic portals, completely invested in the economy of hell, working for their masters? So the basic premise of the economy of hell is you're always kicking back to the guys upstairs. So if you sell 10 units, you're going to keep 3 units and you're going to give 7 to the guys upstairs. And the guys upstairs don't work. They're playing golf and drinking martinis. They don't work. They don't poke and prod humans. They get their lower level minions to do it, and they just rake in the dough. Eric says shape shifting is a metaphor for soul shifting. Yeah, and I think that's in reference to what I was saying about the, like David Icke-like stories of reptilians that are running the country and everything like that. Like a lot of those people like David Icke, they are allowed to say what they say in order to be objects of ridicule, to make these truths appear to be just absolutely ridiculous. And how could anybody possibly even believe that? And to make it, to exaggerate something to the point of ridiculousness. And it's actually a very real thing that's going on. So if someone is demonically possessed or infested with reptilian energy, it doesn't necessarily mean that they have, a flitting tongue or slits for eyes or something like that. But, sometimes you might see people's faces morph and change and look distorted and look ugly. And that's because like you're starting to see who's really running the program that is really running inside of them. Who's the puppet master? Who's really pulling those strings? And one more from Pedro. He says, so someone who is timid is listening to these beings. I'm not sure. I need more clarification about which beings and who is timid. Because like a person who is timid might be a very good person who doesn't want to participate in the economy of hell. So I'm not exactly sure what you're saying about that. So if you can clarify, then I'm happy to answer. Then let me wrap up level 1 and go on to level 2. All of this, do not despair. Yes. So up until this point, up until 2001, up until, the time that I invented the flying rainbow lasagna, it's basically like, wow, there's a lot of unfair, pardon my French, shit that is going on in this realm. First of all, please understand in context, not just in this realm. This is an infestation that has harmed many other planets, many other galaxies, many other timelines. And please also understand that what we are doing in our personal endeavors for freedom emanates outward, just like I spoke about last week with Sally the Terrestrial Technosphere, our personal bids and our collective bid for freedom in this realm. It's like growing the antidote in a petri dish. We grow the antidote to this. So I actually have a huge amount of positive news in terms of the disempowerment of those beings that live in the interstices. So the word occult comes from something that is dark, that they can't be seen, something that is invisible. They've been invisible for a very long time. And this is very much like that Doctor Who episode called The Silence. It's worth watching if you like to watch science fiction stuff. That was about a race of invading aliens that came to Earth a long, long time ago. And when you're looking at them, you can see and remember that they're there. But as soon as you break your attention and look away, you forget that they're there. And they've been here controlling everybody for thousands and thousands of years. And of course, in the wonderful TV show, they come up with a solution so that all of a sudden everyone can break through that program and they can actually see them. That's what is going on right now. It is the revelation. This is what revelation, what apocalypse actually means, not revelation. So everyone thinks apocalypse means destruction. No, it doesn't. It comes from Greek. Apocalypsos, meaning lid opening, eye opening. It means that now everything that was hidden, subtext, stuff that was behind the scenes, everyone knew about the casting couch. Now it is overtly spoken about. People used to know about the deep state, but not actually have a name for it or be able to overtly recognize it. Now it is so overt. This is within the past year and a half. There are articles written referencing the deep state all the time. It is it's like all of these things that were programs running in the background that thrived in secrecy are now completely overt. They are completely outed. But everyone's like, oh, they're outed, but nothing's actually happening. Where are the arrests? Where are the arrests? Well, now we'll get into the second half in level 2, which is personal transformation and metamorphosis and how to actually heal and fix all this with flying rainbow lasagna. Pedro is saying that he meant beings who tell people that they are not worthy. A timid person thinks that everyone is judging them. There you go. So I would say people who are timid in that definition have been eaten away, like their confidence has been eroded away and has been eaten away. Confidence is like life force energy. Little kids are confident. They're like, I'm the best. Like I used to be a professional babysitter. I babysat for a lot of like kids, under age 5. And like at a certain level, at a certain time in their life, they're like, I'm the best. I'm the greatest. I'm a superhero. They have confidence. And then sometimes there's, social constraints. Sometimes there are familial constraints. Sometimes there's physical, verbal, sexual abuse. And then all of a sudden children feel lack of confidence and they don't feel like they're the best. And then they turn into these broken adults that then feed off of the young or cannibalize their good feelings off of other people. My car is better than you because I don't necessarily feel so confident about myself. Eric says, and let's be clear, the deep state is one problem. The state itself is the original problem. Really, really good point, because the state itself is a creation or a construct that comes from those original invaders that say, I'm going to take away your divine connection. And then I'm going to say that you need a government to tell you what to do because you don't have your own connection to the divine that is telling you what to do. So I'm completely agreeing with you on that. When we complete this healing, then it is not necessary to have an external authority figure, not mommy, daddy, Jesus, President Trump, or the Pope, or anyone else to tell us what to do or what to think or how to behave or how to structure our society. And also with freedom comes responsibility. This is just like sexuality. With freedom comes responsibility. It's necessary to direct our life force energy and consciousness and resources in a healthy, appropriate way in order to have abundance. So, okay, this is going to be a long upload. Let me wrap up level 1 and then go on to level 2. And thank you very much. And also, look, I try to get to all of my comments in YouTube, and I'm certain this will generate comments. Sometimes it takes me a long time. Let me just reiterate, because I know that I'm not trying to alienate people who are gay or homosexual or to justify any kind of violence towards anyone or anything like that. So just wanting to be really, really clear on that. And also that it's not just homosexuals, it's heterosexuals too. The way that everybody in this time and place has been devaluing and commodifying sexuality is very disturbing to me. So the healthy expression of sexuality, because all of that feeds the economy of hell, is what I'm trying to say. Using sexuality in a way that diminishes its true connection to the divine. And it's also in a way that creates a sense of guilt and wrongness. And I'm not trying to create more guilt and wrongness by telling people no, don't masturbate. No, don't be gay. No, I'm not the church. I'm not trying to tell you not to touch your parts or anything like that. I'm trying to say sexuality must be used in the correct way, like using a paintbrush. It's easy to paint an ugly painting. It's easy to make gross music. It is very challenging to make beautiful music. So and I'll respond to questions. I'll respond to things in the chat too. Thank you very much for everyone who commented here and for people who took the time to watch this recording. Thank you.